So today we're going to do something slightly different and have an actual look at a real world business proposition and use the design company model to actually ideate some ideas for this thing and see what we can come up with. Z, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Jason. How are you?
Good. So tell me a little bit, let's go straight in. No kind of mucking around here. So what is the purpose of the project or the business here that you're proposing in one sentence?
So we're trying to create a bank which is much more conscious as regards retail and investment.
Okay. Create a conscious bank, let's say. And who are the people that you're looking to serve?
So we've got a full range of what we would like to do, and we're going to kick off the bank with SME lending. We feel this is really important in the COVID times to help local businesses and as much as possible to keep the country going. And if we are slipping into a recession, support the economy in every way we can. And while we're doing that, we will be building Picnic Bank, the core structure, and then launching personal bank accounts at the end of year one. And we're looking to launch them in the UK, Nordics, Netherlands, and then start filtering into the rest of Europe, probably beginning with France.
And so I think the core focus for us today is to look at some of the product ideas. But before we get there, what are the kind of systemic things that you think are going to differentiate you from, or how do you see your system working compared to other banks? Is the underpinning nuts and bolts of it roughly the same as other banks, and then differentiation is on the innovation and products bit? Or
so we're looking at fair pricing for everything. So we don't want our customers to get trapped in the cycle of deprivation where they're just paying minimum payments on loans or credit cards. So that's very important to us. We're going to be very customer centric from the word go. So our customer service team will be trained highly in not only finance, but also for people that are in trouble with their finances and helping to rebuild their credit profiles. So we think this is extremely important, especially in troubled times. We're looking at doing different wrappers for our main bank account. We have got 3 tiers of bank account, but our main bank account, we're looking at creating an eco concierge service and gamifying that to help people invest and save and look at how they shop and live in a different way. Yeah, go on.
And what's the core innovation or innovative ideas here that you would say?
So we're with the SME lending, we're looking at launching into 4 different postcodes. So you will be able to help the businesses around you stay strong through this time. We will have ambassadors, not like the other challenger banks, in hopefully local supermarkets. So you'll be able to speak to people face to face. We want to match that funding with institutional funding. So all the lovely shops and cafes and restaurants that you go to now, we're hoping to help support those. And then we are looking at how the whole of capitalism is grinding to a halt. And this is why we're looking at the Nordics and the Netherlands, because they're much more open to fintech for good ideas. And actually in the Netherlands now, they're testing something called donut economics, which is something we're really keen to explore and help grow from there.
And so what are your core ideas for the product? This is kind of where it gets really interesting in terms of ideation.
Right. So our top layer account that will have an eco, we will partner with a concierge service, but the difference is it'll be all eco products. It'll be ethically sound, we will recommend you the next level of products that you have. So if you're looking at mortgages or anything for your home, the way you eat, the way you shop, so we can recommend a more ecologically sound product for you. And we're partnering with lots of other conscious companies. So for example, often we see that the rich are taught to invest and the poor are taught to save. And as we know, with inflation and with the way the economy is now and with wages, unfortunately, saving is often quite you don't get much of a return by the time you retire. And so we're partnering with a company called Pinked, and they offer retail investing from £1, and they're actually going to build us special reserves. So all of the products you will invest in will be ethically sound and green, and you'll know that it's going to really good companies. And they're using it's called a super predictor model, and they've already shown that if we follow super predictors, that last year they made 15% on their investments. So we're very keen to offer this to our customers right from the word go. And then we're looking to partner with a disruptive mortgage company that's in stealth right now in the UK. And we're hoping to write some white papers with them and look how smart cities will affect us all in the future. And especially now with COVID, it's even more in the limelight that we have to live with purpose, and health has become much more important to all of us. So if you look at the smart cities concept, there are people that are called digitally invisible, and they're not using computers and phones in the way the vast majority of us do. And these are the kind of people, again, we would like to help support and include in what we're doing. And that will be through grassroots reach out. We're going to do a FinTech for Good tour of the UK, because if you speak to a lot of people outside of London, they don't actually know what FinTech is. And I was having a great conversation with a FinTech pension company, and we were saying, it's great that hipsters can laugh about their Monzo cards at the Ace Hotel in Shoreditch and show off about it, but actually FinTech should be there for Jane in Cardiff with 2 kids that needs a better pension plan or needs to learn how to invest. So this is what we want to create, and work with amazing partners to do that.
Mm-hmm. And so what I'm getting out of everything that you're saying is a picture about what this system could be, or the product, because you've asked me to look at some of the UX design for this, and what I'd like to always get out of the founder, or the person who's proposing the idea, is what are you thinking? And then I like to riff on that as much as possible to actually kind of create things that are of sense making in terms of as an actual technological proposition or a product proposition. So just in terms of people, it strikes me that usually these banks nowadays are just apps, right? Like app is the bank, right? So the app ought to have your friends that are core people in your life as the people that are your core interactions in your transactions. So here we've got this idea of, and I'm completely riffing this up, by the way. So, I'm going to say a lot of things that don't necessarily make sense to me either, and I'll roll back on them. Okay, we're free in this world to have ideas that we don't latch onto and don't kind of implement. Okay, but interactions here, there's the idea of interactions are transactions, and those transactions are often in the form of money, but they can be perhaps in other forms. So I'm kind of just stashing that as an idea. But also in terms of your social graph, who do you have? You have family, and when I say you, I mean a human being, a person who is going to become sustainable in some way, shape, or form. But you have family, which is maximum 5 to 10 people. Nowadays, we have broader social circle of friends, which might be, let's say, up to 100 people. And then sort of network and acquaintances, which might be, let's say, 1,000 people plus. So that's a kind of core thing that I would be looking to explore as a design idea in terms of that kind of the people side of things. And
yeah, that's really interesting, because we're looking at building a fintech for good toolbox, which will be intrinsic to our open banking offering. And one of the first things we're actually doing is, when people go over their overdraft limit, we actually in the UK waste 2 billion a year. And so the second you go over your overdraft limit, you'll have a guarantor, hopefully from that inner network that you were just talking about now, they will repay it. So you won't end up paying extortionate amount of money for it. So that's brilliant.
So what ends up being the case, and this goes off the back of some of the cultures, like I think in Somalia there is a kind of whole, in Ethiopia there is a whole network of people who will say to each other that if somebody from Africa, from Ethiopia, wants to send some money to somebody in UK, they'll be through the network of those people, they'll bring the cash over one way or another. And it's such a trusted network that it's going to happen. They don't necessarily know how, but it's going to happen. And so the idea here being that interactions can build into transactions. So if two people are having a lot of interactions with each other, then it's quite natural for those lots of interactions to build into further business, and that business can be trusted, because the idea of green, or dare I say hippie kind of people, is that through interactions trust builds. And those interactions, like which is the person that you chat to the most on your WhatsApp, who are you calling the most, and so on. Well, those are the people that potentially could be the people that you could, with trust, send money and receive money back from, especially, for example, if down the stream they're also running a business. Okay, so if they're running a business, that's my little cafe there, then you will go to this business and you will buy your coffee from there. And because you like that coffee so much, you might come in with your app, with your bank, and you might say, well, hey, how about I chuck a £5 note your way as a form of crowdfunding? And that crowdfunding might work between 1,000 people, okay, 1,000 visitors or 1,000 visits. That might become a nice little funding round for that cafe to become funded by who? The local visitors, the actual visitors who are coming to the cafe and buying from it. So this is something like a company called Brewdog has done this very much successfully with beer and so on. So can I become a shareholder? Basically, you become a shareholder in the business that you really like to buy from. It's kind of self-fulfilling prophecy. I have lots of local restaurants and shops that I really like, and I keep wondering, how can I own a piece of that shop? Because I love it so much that I want to have like more vested interest in it. And of course, the cafe owner should be able to apportion the overall shares of that shop and say give 25% of those up for that communal funding, uh, to be purchased by local or funded by the local people. And then, so really the product of this bank is not just an app. Of course, the app is a shop front in a sense to this, but it's an ecosystem where the monetary transactions are empowering people and businesses to continue transacting with one another, um, to continue helping each other to create what is a lot more circular economy here, because the more money circulates around, the more the economy is healthier, because as the business owners have the money, they can buy new ingredients and serve more coffee, and people come back and buy more coffee. And so the consumption cycle continues, and it all stays in the local area. And so there is an idea here around money, which you said was around helping people both get out of debt. And one way to get out of debt is to pay your debt off. So there is the kind of the idea of pay debt off, which can be a gamified type of thing. So if you've got, let's say, I don't know, £1,000, that could become a thing that you could somehow erode down through a habitual £1, £2 sort of chipping away at that block. So it could be that, that in sort of design terms, that could be like represented as a sort of shrub of some sort that you need to kind of, chip down. And, I'm sort of doing like very ad hoc sketch notes here, but that shrub could be reducing itself down as you're paying off pound by pound, £2 here, £2 here, £2 here. And what you're doing is you're making way for something that is eventually more of a green area on which you can then start planting a tree of actual investments. And that tree of investments is made up of these little seed capital rounds that you put in. And that tree eventually grows into a tree that pays dividends in form of apple seeds and apple fruits, something like that. But so you're going from reducing the shrubbery and growing your investment tree by not just shopping at local stores, but also chipping in towards crowdfunding those stores. And you're paying debt off, but you're also investing on the go. Because it's much different to feel an understanding of a business when you've been there 10, 20, 30 times, and you can see how these people are working and how it's being run, compared to just kind of seeing a share price somewhere on the screen, and it's like it's going up, it's going down. I have no idea who runs this, who doesn't, and how they do it and whatnot. And so the growth in this case wouldn't be so much about exponential growth, but it would be about solid growth that is based on actual strong, trusted relationships, which you wouldn't necessarily have with thousands and hundreds of thousands of people, but you would have that with 100 people, but that relationship would be very, very solid, akin to those Ethiopians passing £100 from Ethiopia all the way to London, and all of it coming coming over, and that being a trusted system, as opposed to what a modern day bank is like, where you send £100 and before you know it, what you receive is 60. It's like, where's my 40 quid gone? It's like, well, it's been gobbled up in the system. Don't you know how this works? It's like, no. So these are kind of just ad hoc sort of ideas that I'm having. And so each one of these things, so for example, on the growth side, the view of this app could be literally outlined in a way that there are certain steps to achieve, and obviously this could be illustrated in many different ways, but we're going from 0 point somewhere to 100 point to actually do those tasks that the app or the ecosystem encourages us to do, from spend locally to top up a certain amount to buy actual shares in 1 or 2 or 3 shops that you like, so crowdfund it, to buy a number of times from each shop, to kind of potentially share the shop with other friends and so on. So all these kind of social things that you would do naturally would be baked into that growth model to encourage and recognize those activities for a valuable thing that they are worth, because it's not just about money, it's also about recognition, a bit of status, and those kind of things. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think it's, in this modern age, it's really nice to have a social circle that is reliable, and you're building your life these days with your family and friends anyway, so it's not that far away from what we could do here with social trust. And also locally, I think because we've all been in lockdown, we've really appreciated those local shops, local services, and neighbours that have gone the extra mile to help people. So right now, I think it's the best time to start investing in, especially if the workforce goes to 50% remote as well, and with all the facts that a lot of people are now looking to move out of big cities like London because of the air pollution, and because of just realising, if I can work from home, why would I live in a city? So I think investing back into our surroundings is extremely important for our mental well-being as well as everything else.
So what happens to be the case with majority of banks, a typical banking interface looks something like this. Transaction, 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 transaction. There's some sort of monetary value here, usually a minus that you're seeing, -5, -10, right? And some sort of very bad entry on what that is about. This thing is soulless, totally soulless, versus what you could be seeing is that you could be seeing a picture of the shop where you bought from. So it could be like cafe local, okay? And you could spend £2.75 brackets. By spending that, you made something like 0.01p because you're co-owner of that, okay? You effectively got a form of like a cashback. And you could see their progress. For example, on how well they're doing on the crowdfunding thing, right? So that could become a thing to keep an eye on and basically partake in that game as you're spending there, as you're crowdfunding and investing locally and so on. You could also potentially be able to, tap on this picture here and actually then see the situation with that particular business, see their kind of progress on their overall number of investors who've made contributions, how much they've raised, and potentially kind of little pitch of what they're actually looking for and their little sort of purpose statement and stuff like that. That could be a lot more. You can see maybe like a picture of the local person who's like pitched up their little sort of blurb around why their business matters to them and the local community and stuff like that. So that instead of this being a very soulless part of experience, there's just kind of a bunch of transactions, becomes more about people, purpose, progress, planet, right? And even things like products and profits, right, eventually. But those profits that are actually that are contributing to the local area and feeding the local area, as opposed to dripping them off their all of their blood and sucking their blood out. But this becomes a lot more heart-based approach to spending and using, basically, like I'm kind of quite riffing on this idea that money is power, okay? Because we're seeing more and more that any kind of voting and political activity doesn't really have that much reflection in reality. But when you start spending your money differently, suddenly all the capitalist institutions wake up and go, oh, hold on a second, people have stopped spending on this. We've got to make them start again spending with us. What can we do for them to bring them back in, right? So money is power. And so the money is at the heart of all these things to change society. And but the bank has got to become power bank as opposed to disempower bank for people. And that's the kind of idea. It's like your kitty that is real, true saving spot that is living. Because when you put your £5 note, I don't know if I can draw a note here, something like that, £5. And when you put that in there, that £5 suddenly becomes 5.01 and then 5.02 and so on. It's all growing, and more you put the money in different little kitties across this bank, the more it starts growing passively as you're sleeping, which is the way to grow your community, because money is power, and money is the kind of almost like watering the plants, right? It's the money is sort of watering the plants of these local businesses that are working in the area and that need local funding and help to grow.
Absolutely, I love that. It's a really, really strong format and way of looking at it. And I think we've spoken before around how we were looking at helping people look at how they're spending and analyze it a bit more, and have an angelic goal in a month and that they're trying to reach and what they're spending it on. So yeah, we could definitely look at how AI is going to affect that in the future, and how, like you said, we once we've started empowering people and their surroundings, it really helps build the local community up and create more friendship and laughter and social. I can see that in my street here in Oxfordshire, that everyone's really interacting. You know, when people had birthdays, people would go out on the street and sing happy birthday to them. And, you know, it really, people are putting old books and videos outside on their front gardens. So it just takes a little bit of everyone doing something small, and then it makes everyone feel happier and safer and more empowered in general. So yeah, I think it's great.
Exactly. And so that community effort is very, very powerful. And it all adds up, especially when the communities are given structured processes to go through to chip little by little. And that we know that like competition works in that kind of like, oh, let's make this complete, let's make this crowdfunder finish, and it's local, it's ours, and we want to see it succeed, especially when there is something in for us. Especially, you know, these things do add up as you participate. And also there's certainly just general feeling around this that, hey, I've participated in crowdfunding for this business and they're doing well, and I'm also benefiting from it, and it works.
Completely. I mean, it's just looking at things through a different lens. For example, there was a study recently done in one of the towns in the UK where they filled all of the verges with meadow flowers and wild flowers, and that actually saved the council, I think, £25,000 a month, because they didn't have to go and mow all of these hedges. Plus, it's great for all the wildlife, you know, the bees and the butterflies. And so it's just doing a little bit of extra thinking, a little bit more eco awareness, and you can save the council money, help the community, make the town look lovely, increase insects. So yeah, it's completely true.
And of course, then the local government could also play very much active part in this by setting up pots of money that could be distributed through the bank, and say, well, let's say we have £1 million in this particular council or borough, and we can actually have local community decide who gets how much apportioned to where, why, and how, and what the kind of social contracts are around that, and there being more transparency around who's got what and how they're working towards both repaying that back or utilizing it to grow, because maybe some of the money is grant money, it's not supposed to be paid back, but we want to see it growing into something of value for the local community that maybe then can become a crowdfunding thing off the back of that. Because let's say somebody is just setting up a local business, they might benefit from a grant money from the government, which then really qualifies them into a crowdfunder from the local people as they set up the initial shop or service offering and so on.
Yeah, no, completely. I was playing with the idea as well of a digital high street, because we all love to support local businesses that we're walking past, but we actually don't realise how many businesses are actually in the streets around us right now, and you know, people working from home. And so if we could create essentially a digital high street, so people can go and visit the local graphic designer, or you know, the local nursery that we might not know about, because you know, things like that, that maybe if we created a digital high street and essentially a notice board / wish list of projects that we would love to do, I think it would make a real difference. And we can talk to the LEPs in the area and universities and schools, because I'm sure there are many projects that are getting completely unfunded because nobody knows about them.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the things that is somewhat frustrating is, like I said, the banking app does not give me insight into view on the shops and who I'm interacting with. And also something like Google Maps does not give me an ability to spend at that shop. So something that like this future bank idea is is to to create like an in between something like Google Maps and a typical bank. It's like Google Maps with money, so that if I were able to traverse through this high street virtually, I could see who's doing the crowdfunders and actually browse through their pitch deck of a sort, and be able to chip in with some crowdfunding contribution directly from effectively what's my banking app, because I know what my position is monetarily. It's all there, but I can also see what the opportunities are for investments. And so literally people could be sitting at home and growing their local economy just by browsing what would be like effectively a virtual high street, with a whole bunch of opportunities to either buy stuff or invest and buy.
Exactly. And I think especially where I live and near the Cotswolds, they've got direct from farm food. And again, it's unfortunately, I think it's sometimes just in friendship groups, or you might not hear about something. So if you had a resource that is essential for everybody, and if there were some farmers that had extra stock that they wanted to give away to local community or food bank or whatever, then it'd be much more alive if it was in one place, because the councils don't have time to do these things. They don't have the extra resources right now, so we could help promote local businesses to the next level, basically.
Exactly. All right, awesome. So thank you very much for that chat, and I think that's going to serve me very good for, as a starting point for my further ideation into a little bit more of a actual interfaces with some more concrete ideas.
Wonderful. It was great to hear insights. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you. Cheers.
Have a lovely
Bye
evening.
bye.
Bye.